Hi guys, my name is Greg Kourpanidis and welcome to the Revo PT podcast, which is brought to you by Revolution Performance Training. I'm an avid trainer and fitness coach who strives to learn the very best in the world of health and fitness. Join me each episode as we speak to game changers in their chosen fields, sharing their story of passion and success. For all podcast related things, please subscribe and check us out on RevoPT/podcast. Enjoy this episode. Thanks for tuning in to episode 115 of the Your Revolution podcast. Today we're going to be joined by Jason Stacy, a high performance coach, speaker, and lecturer. Welcome to the Your Revolution podcast.
Thanks, my man. Good to be here.
Awesome. How is quarantine treating you?
It's amazing.
Yeah,
it's amazing. Sure, why not? You know, I can't do a lot about it, so I'm just just enjoying what I can. Yeah, of course, man.
Oh, very good.
It doesn't bother me at all. There's some actually pretty good things coming out of it, I think. So we'll see how we go.
Well, you're generally on the road a lot of the time, so it must be nice to kind of
Well, yeah, I mean,
it
feels weird not being on an airplane or an airport or a hotel right now. So it's nice just been chilling out with the family a bit more.
No, perfect.
Been loving it.
Whereabouts have you been more recently since I guess having to bunker down?
Since we got locked down. Just mainly staying in Melbourne, man. I haven't been at home. I haven't been going anywhere.
Okay.
Yeah, like literally. Like, I mean, for a number of weeks because we were in the U.S. getting ready for some competitions that got canceled, like really right before they were starting. And then the next morning, all the agents and everyone were like, "Listen, we have to get out of here. Donald Trump's going to lock the borders and blah blah blah." So we literally just like found out that everything was canceled. Like, what the heck? We'll go to Miami, go to the next one. They said, "No, that's canceled." And then like hours later, like, "Get on a plane, get out of here." So we did that, and then came home. And then because I had been overseas, I got the whole 2 weeks. I had to lock myself up. And then since then, just been just hanging around at home, going for walks. Yeah, doing some jiu-jitsu in the garage with the family, and
very nice.
It was good.
No, awesome. Well, that's great to hear. Well, as we always do, we always kind of like to give a little bit of an introduction. Would you be able to, I suppose, give our audience, I guess a little bit of an intro into, I guess, who you are and, I guess what you're all about.
Jeez, I don't know how much time we have, man. I guess.
We got time.
Look, I mean, like I said, I'm a performance coach. I don't know where to start. I mean, I've been in the industry of allied healthcare and fitness and strength conditioning for over 20 years now.
Yep.
Before that, though, I was still teaching, physical fitness classes. I was teaching jiu-jitsu and aikido-jitsu, like martial arts. Even years before I was, quote unquote, a professional before I got qualified. So pretty much most of my life I've been in this industry of human movement, performance, fitness. I started off, like I said, teaching martial arts, then became a personal trainer and then a massage therapist. Which the course I did then was a 3-year full-time gig, so it was pretty involved as far as like sports and clinical type treatments. And then from there, I became an athletic trainer, which is, they don't have that in Australia, but overseas a lot of people would know what that is. Pardon me, I'm a bit groggy today. Sorry.
But that's all right.
There we go. Okay. Jeez. It's like ATC, so it's like sport physio.
Sports therapist.
Yeah, it's more like you ever watch like a U.S. Sport and the people get hurt on the field and those guys that run out? That's what we would do. We do all the emergency care on site, and we did all the rehab and prep work before and after matches and between tournaments. So we did all the physio work. It's essentially like a physiotherapist, but we specialize specifically with athletes. Yeah. We don't do a lot of the geriatric work or the so it's very, very sport related.
More working like soft tissue,
orthopedic injuries, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so did all that, and then in that process became a strength and conditioning coach.
Yep.
A strength and conditioning coach, and and then just since then just been studying everything I can. Just literally anything to do with human movement, mindset, psychology. I mean, even in in my martial art background, where I did most of my initial training when I was younger, we had to, for like each of our black belt levels, we had a stack of books we have to study. They were on psychology, on human behavior, on physiology, on exercise physiology. So we actually had to study a lot of the stuff about how the human body works, physically and mentally. So before I even went to school, it was like I knew all these things, but I didn't know what they were called. You know what I mean? I understood how these things worked, but I didn't. I remember one of my students was a physio, and we'd be talking. We lived together for a little while, like just friends. And we'd just be sitting there talking about stuff. I'd just tell her about things, and she's like, "How do you know all this?
Yeah.
Like, you don't know what they're called, like how to label it, but like, I have my colleagues don't understand what you're talking about." So I was like, maybe I should do this for a living.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. And I've just been in environments from working in hospitals, doctors' clinics, working with HIV and AIDS patients.
Yeah.
Tons of junior athletes, and as we'll probably discuss a bit more, like a lot of elite athletes from.
Yep.
I've helped a lot of athletes come from qualifying for their national teams. They're making into the championships to even winning medals in a variety of Olympics and Commonwealth Games.
Yeah,
It's been pretty cool.
No, fantastic. Well, that's something I kind of picked up on. Obviously, I was doing my research. You've kind of really worked in a lot of different fields, and I see you started off you said more as a fitness trainer and a massage therapist, and then obviously you've branched into more sort of like lecturing, speaking, working in hospitals. How did all these sort of opportunities slowly come about? Was this more like your interest, or did just things kind of just, I don't know, present themselves? Or
I mean, that's a good question. I mean, it's been a long time.
Yeah.
I do know in my early days. I mean, like I said, for me, just movement, fitness, this whole thing was always just part of my life. I've been doing martial arts, for example, since I was like 6, 7 years old.
Okay.
Like consistently, actively, and a lot of the opportunities. I mean, I just seem to, when it comes to human movement, especially like seeing people move and seeing like something wasn't quite right, it just sort of, I could just see it, very like it just was really clear to me. Like I said, early days, maybe I didn't know what it was called, but I could just see something wasn't right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, for me, I just always knew like this was something I was going to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, like, as a profession, getting all these opportunities, early days, I just had to figure out and thought about, okay, well, where do I want to be? What environment do I want to work in?
Yeah.
And how am I going to get in front of those people?
Yeah.
And I just did everything I could to be in front of those people. And when I was there, I gave everything I could. I asked lots of questions, not with like ego or arrogance, but and not annoying people either, but just out of curiosity. I'd share my ideas and thoughts with people that I just met that were the ones running the organizations.
Right. Yeah.
I wasn't afraid just to get out there and say, listen, I was thinking about this, or I saw you guys doing this way. Why, I was thinking of it this, like, why do you take this approach? Like, would you share with me? And so I would just make sure I was there. I was working at every event I could get my body into. Like I could just everywhere I could be. I'd introduce myself to whoever was running the place. I just whether it was the paramedic running the first aid tent, or the physio, or the doctor who was like on site for the event. I just introduced myself. That was it. And I was always there, just making sure I did good work.
Yeah.
Very professional. Did anything I could to help. Did that extra bit. Came early, left late. Everywhere I could be. And then and eventually things like one of my instructors at the school I went to, he was working for, like, example, the Seattle Sounders as a pro soccer team. Okay. And he wanted to take some time off. And he's like, listen, and he came to me. I just a freshly, a new student, and said, hey, I'm thinking about taking this time off. Would you be interested in covering, the season for me? And I'd be in there for a couple of seasons.
Wow. Okay.
And so some of it's like who like that definitely helps. But I just made sure that I just did the best I could and just was learning from everyone, just listening, taking notes, just put myself out there as much as I could.
Yeah. No, I forget because you've said this quote a few times, and I forget.
Have I?
So you're gonna have to remind me it.
Yeah.
It was one of those ones. I think this kind of sums you up very well. Just from that summary is that obviously you need to know the right people, but it's more about being obviously good enough to stay in that.
Oh yeah, I know.
Like
we talked about that. So it's the who gets you there.
That's right.
But what keeps you there.
Yeah. You
know what I mean? So like, because it's about. I mean, that's how it is. You know, I mean, it's just whether it's right or wrong doesn't matter. The fact is who gets you in the door. You know what I mean? But how you are and what and what you're able to, the relationships you're able to build, the outcomes you're able to achieve, your effectiveness, I suppose, as well as do you fit in with the group. That stuff is the stuff that keeps you there, right? But you have to, if you don't go out meeting people and you don't offer your feedback and learn from as many people as you can, then those won't come. You'll just be. What I find a lot of coaches do, especially nowadays, the more recent years, is they're just so focused on like getting those degrees, those qualifications, get those letters behind my name. I have all the education, so I should just get the job. It's like, well, it doesn't work that way. Everyone's got education nowadays. Like it's education nowadays is like easily accessible. It's not that difficult. You know what I mean?
It's all that sort of application.
Yeah, it's all. But I think you need a good combination of both. I remember a few years back, I was speaking at an event with Dan Baker. And he had mentioned too, like some example, something I mentioned in my speech, in my lecture, but he had mentioned something about nowadays these higher performance organizations, they don't, there's that whole pendulum theory, like everything goes from application and real world appliance to like the data and the numbers and the science, and that kind of goes back and forth. It's like, well, really, it's just in the middle.
Yep.
Everyone has education. You need to have the knowledge. You need to have some information. But like nowadays, I can get my iPhone right now and you ask me any question, I can get the answer. I don't need to have, information is not as valuable as it used to be, right? Your ability to apply that information and not just build the toolbox, but know what tool to use, how to use it, when is the right time and place, and then all those relationship things I'm sure we'll talk about. That's the stuff that like you gotta, that'll keep you in those places. And as you asked me before, that's how suddenly people will come into me that like I have all these different sports I've worked in, and I don't think I've ever actively called up the sport, say, hey, sport, I can't work with you. That people will say, hey, look, I saw you at this workshop, or a friend of mine works in soccer. I mean, I'm actually with one of the swimming coaches. We were talking about you the other day, and would you be interested in coming checking this out? Or, so, but it's because of those reasons. Like, I know what I do. I'm good at what I do, and I keep trying to learn as much as I can. But it's also like I just make sure that I get to know the people as best as I can.
I was going to touch on, I think that's something we will talk in, but I suppose it's that building of relationships as well. And
of course, it's a big part of it.
All hand in hand,
You're working with people, man. So
well, sort of going back more into that experience. One thing I want to cover is that you, as you kind of touched on, you've kind of worked in a lot of sort of different areas. Did you at first, I suppose, have an area you wanted to focus on? Like you kind of said, you really liked movement. Did you go down more? It sounds like you went more down a rehab or clinical side at one point. Were you more?
Yes.
Did you have like different, like maybe at one point you were thinking I was going to go down this road, and then did you want to specialize in an area?
For me, it felt like I would probably say no. I know that happens a lot where like and when I teach a lot, I see it a lot. People they'll start, I want to do this.
Correct. Yeah.
And then they get in the industry and they find that the people like that are suddenly coming to them and they're doing really good work with was some group that they didn't think about before. Yeah. And so they kind of shift gears. Or others they keep going that track. For me it was I always knew. Like even when I was doing this massage stuff, I was like, okay, I'm working with athletes, I'm working with sport. Yeah. It just spoke to me, I just knew that's what I was going to do. And that's, again, everything I studied during that period, everywhere I did my internships, everywhere I did my hours, every event I did do, it was all just to be in that environment. Yeah. And so, like, I just always knew. I mean, it was just part of what I did. I was already working with combat athletes. Yeah. Back then, in those days in the 90s, the jiu-jitsu thing wasn't as big. It wasn't actually anything, really. No. Like it is nowadays, what I mean? Like, it was more like the karate, kickboxing, boxing kind of thing, and wrestling, that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I was already working with athletes. I was an athlete myself, doing my own training as well, and so it just matched. I was ready to go, and everything I did was for that. I was just always everything I did was that, and I never had any doubt in my mind. It just clicked. And when I did my first internship hours at University of Washington, is like where I did some hours for one of the massage courses, which I ended up working there later. But it was like everything I did was when I got there and just saw all these different sports, all these athletes, all the different sort of professionals doing different roles. That for me was like, okay, I'm in the right place, right? But even during that period, I saw a lot of gaps. Like I don't know if we'll talk about this later, but that was a big part of for me. It was like while I was learning all these things, and one reason why I kept learning going to different sort of educational backgrounds and information was I just felt like there was missing parts, like things weren't connected. Yeah. Right? There was too many gaps. Like nowadays it's a little bit better. Like, there's more of this bridging the gap between like say rehab.
Just about to say that. It sounds like you've done that a lot. You've kind of bridged a lot of things.
And that's what early days, it wasn't a lot of that. It was like, especially in the US, we have like, insurance companies. So you go see a physical therapist after only you get a referral from a doctor. Yeah. And then the physical therapist is only allowed to do certain things based on your insurance and what the doctor said, right? So you meet certain ADL, like certain, you can brush your teeth now by yourself. Okay, you're done. Yeah. It's like, but I'm a baseball player. I need to throw. I need to do more than brush my teeth. Yeah. So, and so I always knew that I wanted to work in that, in the middle of this. I wanted to bridge those gaps because I felt like there was just too many holes in everything. Everyone was so focused on their one little part, and no one was talking to each other. So for me, it was like, that's why I was like, as I was working as a massage therapist, I was hanging out with the physios, the doctors, and I was hanging out in the strength conditioning room and talking about what they're doing and why, about my athlete that I was working with. Yeah. And they're all saying different things. And I'm like, well, no one's talking to the athlete, or very few are. And they're definitely not talking to each other very much. Yeah. They're sort of telling, this is what I'm doing. And it was really weird. So for me, it was more like, I got to fill in these gaps. I got to find a way to make that work. So I kind of created my own sort of roles, really, quite often. Yeah. So that's why I don't really fit in the box normally.
No. And I think that's probably a big thing, even today, is I find that, because I know I've made that myself, is I think people they want to they niche out really quick. Sure. Whereas I feel like they don't explore as much as look into other areas. And it sounds like you kind of did all that groundwork pretty early on, and
Yeah, still doing it too.
Well, yeah,
I
and still doing
I prefer that way.
Yeah.
But, no, I think you're right. I agree with that. It's I wouldn't say it's wrong or right or whatever, but I agree that people seem to really want to niche down or get deep into that one little element. And it's like it's important, and it's important to have people out there like that are doing that.
Of course,
like right. And I use a lot of those people when I need like some detailed information about one thing. Like, hey, what have you found about this, or what are you guys looking at these days in this area? Yeah. And I just take that information, and then I go actually like, okay, well, is it useful to me? How can I use it right now with my current environment? Yeah. So we need those people. I have friends who like they're the data lovers and they're the research guys, and they were they were never meant to be interacting with people or humans, So we need those guys. They're great and gals. Sorry, but definitely, I think as I mentioned to you before, like the other day when we were talking, is I get a lot. I like do like coach development workshops, and as you mentioned, I kind of teach different places. And when I get younger, in the sense of new to the industry coaches and trainers, I try to encourage them to like there's this big thing of like to work in a commercial gym is like a it's a negative thing. It's like it's terrible, and why would you do that? And there's all this stuff. It's like at the same time I look at it and go, who goes to a commercial gym? There's a lot of different types of people from resources of it, like how much money they earn, their previous experience with movement or health or fitness, the mental health issues that you address. You have single moms to grandmas to executives to high school kids, like, and everything in between. Even athletes go in there, like many athletes. So you have a huge range of people with a lot of different situations, right? Yeah, and difficulties and obstacles. And then your job is to sit there one-on-one with them and figure out how to get them to find their way to achieve what they want, right? So you learn how to develop these skills of being able to work with anyone. You can walk into a room, just sit down with that person and have a short conversation and figure out a little bit more about what they're about and how that you're going to help them help themselves, right? And that's, I think, a big part that's missing in a lot of coaching. So for me, like, I think if you can get that range of background of skills of working with different types of people, no matter what you want to specialize in, even if no matter what you're going to specialize, like that's your thing, right? For whatever reason, that's great, but get some exposure in some different environments and work with different people, and whatever you specialize in, you're gonna be very, very good at, rather than just like everybody else. Yeah, that makes sense.
Absolutely makes sense.
Well, there you go.
No, great answer. Now, I listened to a previous post because this is kind of going a little bit back, and it was more going over your childhood, and I read that you had a little bit, I guess, bit of a tough upbringing at sort of early teens. I suppose, can you sort of share a little bit of that? And I guess because what I sort of read is, my understanding is you kind of you seem to have learnt a lot going through that difficult period, mainly in terms of dealing with, I suppose, people and even yourself, like your own emotions and communication and all that.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, I'm assuming you're talking about when I was homeless.
Yeah.
So when I was from around maybe 13-ish, and it was only for a few years, so maybe around 16, then I started getting off the streets. But I was literally homeless. Like, I just went. My father died when I was 10. Yeah. My mother, started having a bunch of some struggles. 3 kids, all that stuff. And I don't remember exactly how it happened, but like, I kind of went away and I was living with these people, helping them do some stuff. And then I was coming back home, and then when I went there was nobody there. And so then I didn't know where everyone was, and I just stayed on the streets by myself. So it was from about 13 till about 16. I was literally I was homeless. I was living on the streets, sleeping outside. At different times, I was staying in some pretty disgusting places. I mean, I remember staying this is abandoned hotel where people would just squat, like, or they just do really bad things there. Yeah. And I would sleep there, but I would I would steal some tape or whatever. I would find some like rope tape, and I'd have to like tape up my ankles and shirts and my neck because it was literally so many cockroaches and rats everywhere. Like, you couldn't step at night; it was just covered in. Wow. So I just but it was a roof, right? So I'd stay there. So it was pretty some nasty stuff, and obviously doing some things just to survive. So I mean, look, a lot of the people I was hanging around with, obviously weren't the nicest people, to say the least. So I mean, it was pretty rough. Like, I just had some, I've been shot at many times. I've had a number of concussions, and a few of them were from getting hit in the head with the back of a gun. I've had people try to stab me. I've had people where I was sleeping, where I was like, okay, we're cool, and we're staying in this place together. It would just be like, they'd be high and just getting freaked out and like wake me. Like, I remember I had this big biker guy come busting into my room where I was staying with a big ass freaking knife, just like swinging at me because I don't know what, he was just mumbling and yelling out weird random things, and he was really high and all messed up. And he's like, I just somehow got out of that room and I ran. I just kept running, never went back, never got any of my. I mean, I didn't have a lot of stuff anyway, but I just disappeared, just took off. I'm like, okay, I'm never going back there. So it was interesting times. But I mean, to your point about how it's helped me with other things, of course, in these environments, you have to learn how to control your emotions. You have to be, I was in many situations where, like, you have to know when and how to either stand up, and when to, kind of just back down a little bit, right? Yeah. But you never want to be like showing this weakness or fear, because then you're prey.
Like social awareness?
A lot of it is like emotional awareness and social awareness. Like you gotta get a real good vibe of like, man, if I look like I'm nervous or scared, I'm gonna have some problems. They're gonna look at me as a threat, and that's a very bad thing. A lot of these people. But at the same time, if I walk around or act like I'm not scared, right? They're gonna be like, well, they're gonna step up to me like, well, who do you think you are, right? Yeah. So, and it gets very, very ugly then as well, especially in the situations I was in. It was not like I wouldn't live. You know what I mean? I was very, very outclassed and outnumbered on the level of violence and the ability of those people. So like I really had to learn how to control my emotions, read people's intentions, like really understand, like, what is this person about? What are they up to? Because I had to, in a lot of ways, a lot of times, a lot of situations I got out of and survived. It wasn't just because I was so smart or so quick or whatever. It was just like something just didn't feel right. Yeah. And I would pay attention. I started really paying attention to that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
like,
I think what is my gut telling me? Your gut feeling.
Yeah, like that's a huge part. I mean, I use that even in my coaching still. Like, there's always just, we all get that. There's just something like, even from a movement. You're watching someone do an exercise or drill of their sport, and you're like, something just doesn't look right. You may not always be able to like pinpoint it right away, but there's just something about it that you know there's something missing, and you can't quite put your finger on it, right? So I listened to that. For me, part of it was obviously back in the youth of having to survive. But a lot of it was like, I still use that now where like I listen to my gut. So I listen to my mind, okay, this is what we should be doing. This is how it should be happening. And I look at all the structure and what's happening here and there, talk to the coach and talk to the player. But then I'm just like, no, something's still not right. If I still get that thing, something in me, I'm like, okay, I'll keep working through this until we figure out what it is. And sometimes it's asking questions. Sometimes it's just forgetting about it and coming back later. But for me, the gut is one of the biggest things. Yeah. Like with everything I do. So I have that process, and then I go, well, how does it make me feel? I could tell you about how I use that now in coaching. I said,
that'd be fascinating.
So like one example would be, so I call it like a zooming in and zooming out. Okay. Right. And I also call it sort of having the 1 foot in, 1 foot out. So like if you take an assessment, a movement assessment, right? And what I like to do is zoom in on, like, so I'll maybe look at like 3 or 4 key areas, like, foot, ankle, knees, hips.
Like an overhead squat.
Yeah. It's like a perfect. That's your overhead squat. Be perfect. Easy example. So you look at your, like your thoracic sort of spine region, shoulder region, your hips, and you say your foot, ankle, right? And then maybe the knees, right? So you're looking at those 3 or 4 key areas. And what I like to do is I just like to sort of step back and almost just gaze at the movement. I'm not looking at anything. I'm almost barely looking at them. I'm just watching the movement. Like, how does it flow? Does it seem like, how's the rhythm? How's the feeling of the movement, right? And then I'll zoom in on the ankles and feet, let's say, while they're doing the movement. Okay, then I'll zoom back out and go, okay, and then I'll do that with the knees, zooming in, then I'll zoom out, and then look at the hips. So I kind of zoom in and zoom out every time. And what will happen is, for me, I find that it gives me that sense of the movement overall. Like, because, I can look at just their knees and go, well, their knees are lined up, and the hips are lined up, and everything can be lined up the way it's supposed to be, quote unquote, supposed to be. But if, sometimes it just doesn't look right. Yeah. Right? Or sometimes it's just something's not quite right. Right? The timing, maybe everything's lined up, but the timing of their movement isn't right. And for me, as working with professional athletes or even developing athletes, it's like how they coordinate their movement is more important than how well they do this assessment. Yeah. Right? You understand? Like, you might have all the right ranges of motion, and when you do this movement, everything's lined up the way it's supposed to be. But if it's not coordinated and rhythmic and effective, like an effectiveness to the movement, then there's something wrong, in my opinion. Yeah. And that's what we need to fix and find is like, how can we make that as smooth and effortless as possible, that movement? That's what I'm looking for. Yeah. Right? And so by zooming out, I get that sense of like that feel of the movement. And I do the same thing, let's say, with a practice session. Because I often go to practice sessions just to hear what they're talking about, what they're doing, and watch them actually apply what we're working on. Yeah. I think that's probably a key thing to take note on. Whenever you can, if you're working with athletes, go to as many practice sessions as you can. Get to know all the coaches. Watch how they interact with their other athletes, etc. Yeah. But I do that with practice. I don't just get there and like I'm just watching everything they do and really, really focused. Like I have moments of that, and then moments where I'm just sort of like I'm kind of even barely paying attention. or I'll just switch off and I'll do something else and I'll go back and look because I don't want to get stuck in like a, in seeing something and missing everything else.
Correct.
You know, it's like working all these other sports. I think that's been a big positive for me is that it's helped me. I have all these different, I guess, things to pull from.
Yeah.
You know, and I like to always have sort of one foot in and one foot out. I don't want to be like I've been on the tennis tour, the pro tennis tour for like 15 years.
Full time, yeah.
You know, working with literally the best of them. Yeah, and a bunch of the juniors. But I've never even played tennis in my life.
Yeah.
Like I've joked around and messed around, and they just laugh at me because I can emulate the movement. But
As
soon as the ball comes, like I'm just like, I have to show you some videos sometime. It's ugly. It's ugly.
Okay.
It's fun. It's actually fun. But I mean, the point is I don't want to fall into like, well, I'm doing what everyone else is doing.
Right.
Because I get so stuck in that environment, which is easy to do.
Yeah.
And you start thinking and acting, even though even if you think that you're not doing it, you are. We're human. We become like sort of the average of our environment, right? Like, everyone's talking this language. We all start talking this similar language. It's like in wrestling and jiu-jitsu. I travel all around the world and visit different clubs, and they all have they'll have guys and gals that are good and better, new and experienced, all that stuff. But in the club, there's like everyone kind of has a similar way to roll. Like they might have their unique little specialties, but they have like a similar way that they kind of move, right?
Correct, yeah.
Based on kind of how the coach and how the teaching is done and the structure of the environment. So it's the same thing. If I work within a sport or an organization, if I only do that, I only look at that, then I'm going to fall into that same thing of thinking I'm getting creative and being unique, but I'm not really.
Yeah.
I'm just sort of doing a little bit different of what everyone else is doing.
Yeah.
So I want to have part of that because I need to understand my sport, but I also want to not get stuck with the blind, those little horse things they put with the blinkers where they can't see anything.
Yeah, that's
that's
a good analogy.
Yeah, I don't want to have that. So I purposely make sure that I'm always working with a variety of different people in different sport to make sure that doesn't happen. So anyway,
no, that's
a bit of a long answer for your question.
No, that whole like sort of like you said, that sort of zooming a one in one out. Sorry,
yeah, or like zooming in and zooming out, just get a sense of everything, but also that sort of kind of don't. You can niche and you can specialize, but you still need to like step back and look at what's happening.
Yeah,
think about an athlete. They're playing when they're on the quarter of the field. They see a limited amount of things compared to the coach who's out in the stands looking. Yeah. They can see things that often the athlete misses, right? You want to be both those people. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like you need to have moments where you're just stepping back and going, okay, what's missing here? Something's not right.
Yeah.
So, anyhow, there you go.
Wow. Okay. Well, I suppose going more into, I suppose, your career, can you, talk about the crossover from, doing maybe that sort of like personal training or fitness training to sort of more that sort of performance training?
Okay.
Was that that transition, was that a sort of like a tough transition, or was it something that was quite, natural? Or
I feel like people ask me this question a lot, and I feel like I'm supposed to say yes. But I don't feel like it was.
Well,
you know what I mean?
I don't feel like it would have been for you either.
Yeah, I feel like people want me to go, oh yeah, and this is why, and like the pro athletes are like this and this and that, and all these big sort of things, and I'm like, they're people, man.
They're people.
They're just people. They just happen to be really good at this one thing at their job.
Yeah.
And in this situation, their job is playing a sport. But then I work with other in my general population, and they might be a really good mechanic.
Yeah.
Right, or a very good doctor, or a very good parent, or whatever, teacher. All right, so it's just they just happen to be really good at their job. And there is definitely differences, obviously, in some of the specifics like resources and the amount of hours that they spend training. Obviously, a professional athlete, that's their job is to work out. Like, I mean, people may or may not be surprised, but I would say more than less of my athletes that I've worked with over the last 2.5 or so decades actually don't like to work out. They don't enjoy going to the gym. They don't have you always see all these these cliche things and these memes about the grind and like, oh yeah, we just get up at 5 a.m. and some do that, right? But they don't enjoy it. It's not like they're so excited to go work out today, and I can't wait to do another 4 hours of practice today every day, doing the same thing over and over again. Yeah. Most of them they don't like it. They don't enjoy it. They do it because it's their job, and they know if they don't do this today, that next week they're going to be called out in front of the world. Yeah. Everyone's going to see that they didn't do their work, right? So they're going to let their team down, whether it's, the team of, trainers and coaches, or if it's a team sport and there are other players, the other athletes. So, one of the other differences I'd say with people, general public, I think it gets lost. And the reason why I mention this is I feel like I've had these few conversations with a few colleagues lately is, I think a lot of people are getting scared away from fitness because either they think they have to like be super fit. You know, like they're doing like, you know, you have all these images of people doing like crazy workouts, you know, and like so high, everything's high intensity, everything's going nuts. And so a lot of people like they get scared, they're quite intimidated by this, or they just think they need to be a certain level of fitness before they start doing fitness, you know?
Yeah, okay.
Like think about hiring a coach or a trainer.
Yeah.
How many times have you guys heard like, you know, I'm gonna get in shape before I hire a trainer. I'm gonna get fit before I hire the trainer. I mean, they do some work first. It's like, well, no, that's what they're for.
Yeah.
You know, but people they're either so caught up in like the trainers and coaches so caught up in trying to be seen as being so knowledgeable that they're almost unrelatable and they're not approachable. You know.
Interesting.
So a lot of general public, I think, you know, they're training for different reasons. Like a lot of them just want to feel better. You know, there's something about their life that they're not feeling good about, right? Not necessarily a negative thing, but there's just something that's missing. And a lot of it is just, they just want to feel better. Some of them just want to be a part of something other than just themselves, right? Pardon me. They want to be a part of something bigger. Yeah. Yeah? So, yeah, there's not a huge difference, to be honest, but it's definitely just resources and time that you spend with them and you know, how much you're going to push them. Yeah. You know, like my pro athlete, there'll be periods where we'll put a lot of stress under them, you know, physically and mental stress, where, you know, if I have some, you know, working mom who's, you know, grinding herself down, she's just coming to the gym just to feel better and get away from everyone. You know, I'm not trying to kill that person, right? I just want to help them feel better. Yeah. So I got to meet them where they're at and just go from there.
Yeah.
So.
No. Good answer.
Oh, thank you.
No, you told me.
Jeez.
Now, I suppose going on to your sports, like sorry, I'm just reading a list. You've got you've worked with numerous amounts. So combat sports, swimming, golf, soccer, gymnastics, table tennis. I'm sure there's many others. But,
Sure.
Yeah. quite a wide variety, and I suppose you're more, or what your real recent stuff is, obviously being a big part of on the tennis tour.
Yeah, it's been a big part of it for sure.
For how many years did you say it was? 15?
Yeah, probably about 15 now.
15 years?
Yeah, somewhere in there.
I suppose with all these different adventures, is there any sort of things that sort of stood out in one sport or the other, or any sort of I don't know, where it's like highlights or any sort of things that it's like there was different, like maybe it was a different way you coached or approached it, or is it all kind
like
of
point of
the same?
differences, you mean?
Yeah, the sort of way.
I mean, each has their look. They all think that their sport is the most unique and the most difficult. Yeah, right. So they all think that, you know, this is the hardest one that you don't know because you have to do this sport, otherwise you don't know. Yeah. Like, because, you know, it's okay for other sports, but for ours, no. You know, it's different, right? It's unique. So they all think that. Yeah. And look, there is definitely, you know, everything from the kind of language they use to the culture sort of behind the sport. Yeah. You know, the environments that they're used to working in. You know, there's definitely points of differences. Some, you know, you have your team sports where you have like certain cultures where it's very team related and everyone holds each other accountable kind of thing. You have some team sports where it's very, you know, top driven, very top heavy. You have individual sports where people kind of just doing whatever they want to do. You know, like the tennis, for example. Pardon me. It's very much like I used to describe it as like a closed off traveling gypsy community. You know, like because it's very hard to get into, right? And we all. Even though we're competitors against each other, we're opponents, right? We all travel together the whole time. We're in the same hotels. We're in the same, you know, car transports. We're at the same courts. We're in the same locker rooms, you know, week after week after week. Yeah. Even though we're competing constantly against each other, we're also like together. And it's very hard to get into that circle, right? It's this little closed community. It's very difficult to get into. Yeah. And so you know, I don't really know how to answer that question, but there's definitely some differences in the language and the environment.
Well, maybe actually, let's put it more from, I suppose, team sport to individual sports. Okay. I suppose that would have been something a little bit different in the sense, because obviously the team sports, you probably have a lot more people involved. Yeah, I mean,
definitely. Or obviously, if you're working with an organization where there's like a team, you know, so you have like all your different coaches, you know, and then there's the different allied health professionals, and then you have your different strength and conditioning people. And I think one of the things, at least with my personal experience, because I've worked in some organizations and federations as well as, you know, obviously mostly with the private athletes, is you know, like say in an organization, as far as like your role is concerned, you're put into a box. Yeah. Right. Like, you know, strength coach, right? Unless you're like the main guy, like the guys running it all, you kind of pretty much like, here's your workouts, go make sure they do it. Yeah. You know, it happens a lot more than people want to admit. Yeah. You know, even if the guys are working in there now, that it happens. It happens. Yeah. I've seen it. I know. Yeah. So. And that's actually why I kind of shifted the way I go too, because I was just put in a box. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, well, no, there's more to it than that. Like, why can't I talk to the psychologist? Why can't I go talk to the physio right now? Yeah. Why can't I take you and go talk to them together? You know what I mean? Like, why should I have to just do this workout? Because today, this is what we're supposed to do. But last night, you slept like crap and you woke up feeling like, you could barely walk.
Yeah.
But I'm supposed to do this. So why can't I have some flexibility to understand, like, this is where you're at today, how we're going to manage this?
Yeah.
I know there's a bit more of that happening these days, like the managing of energy and all that.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But with team sports, you have, I guess, to consider others' roles and the amount of work and time that they're putting in these other departments.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to really be able to communicate well with them a lot more. Where, let's say, individually, it's still a team, right? So I still have coaches. We still have the physios, the psychologists, the trainers, the parents, maybe, whatever. So they're still like a team. It's just a different structure.
Yeah.
But you're a lot more like personal with them, right? You interact with them more directly on a day-to-day basis. You know what I mean? So it's easier to make quick decisions. It's easier to adjust things. It's faster to make adjustments, I guess. So that's one of probably the biggest things. And then you have just the one focus, just that one person, right? I mean, sometimes you might have a couple of people, but basically you don't have this big group, right? So you have to manage the one person. So it's really going to be more about individually, where we manage ourselves, each other, as a team. Meaning coach might make sure I'm staying on track with what our focus is. I'm making sure he is or she is, right? For example, I'll give you example. Let's say we're going for a match, and let's say a tennis match.
Yeah.
And this player is, get a little bit anxious. It's a big match, whatever. And like the coach comes in.
Yeah.
And the coach is acting different than usual, because the coach is getting like a bit nervous.
Yeah.
Because that happens all the time.
Sure.
A lot more than people realize.
Yeah.
I know some of the best coaches in the world that they'll literally, before every game, they go in the bathroom and puke because they're just completely shitting themselves.
Yeah.
Right. And you wouldn't believe it. Like, you talk to them, they're just like, they talk like they know everything up top. They're like, bam. But no, they're human.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the thing would be is, the coach comes in and they're not acting like their normal sort of self.
Yep.
And that changes that vibe of the environment. And that's not very good for the athlete, right? Like, things need to be consistent, and just like they have their sort of routine that they follow. We need to help them find the sort of sweet spot of like how they perform their best, right? So whether they're over aroused or under aroused, whatever, we need to be able to like read that and find it.
Yeah.
But if this person's like really over aroused and a lot of high anxiety, more than what they normally would perform their best in, and then the coach comes in and he's pacing or acting different, or talking really fast, or like
impact,
something's different about the person, it's going to have a negative impact because something's changed.
Yes.
So then the player will be like, oh my God, my coach is free. Whether they're thinking it consciously or not, it's still going to make the environment change. So then what I mean by keeping ourselves accountable and keeping in track is that if I see him doing this or she doing that, I'll be like, hey, get a little nudge, or like, oh, I ask you something. So I'll kind of pretend I'm going to talk to him about something, get him away from there without saying, hey, you're doing this, right? I might go, oh, hey, let me ask you something. I want to, blah, 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 whatever, just to get him away for a second. And then, may or may not bring it up depending on how, that person, the situation. But you get the idea.
Yeah.
Is that we have to kind of more really control our actions because it's just that one person. We don't have the team where, there'll be some leaders of the team, some guys who kind of help each other out, and, they kind of feed off of each other. You don't have that in an individual sport as much, right?
Yeah.
So you have to be really, really mindful of like your actions and your words, probably more so in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So, and in a team sport, like, you get spread thin a bit more. So like really good coaches you'll see before a match, like an AFL match I've been to, where you'll see the better coaches, they'll kind of just walk around and have like short little 2-second chats with the guys. Yeah. It's just individually, just boom, boom, boom. And so they're working the room kind of thing, right? Yeah. And then they'll have time where the guys get together. And then they have their own thing, right? So conceptually it's very similar, but there is some differences. Like the application has to be a little bit more specific to that environment, I guess.
That's a good little segue, I suppose, into my next question. It kind of goes into more, I suppose, getting involved with the ATP and the WTA. First of all, how did that opportunity come to be? And second of all, I suppose, can you describe, for those who aren't really aware, just the amount of work, I suppose, the travel and all the... Because I'm sure there's a lot more to it than people think. You've kind of described a little bit already.
Yeah, but, I mean, it's tough, but but I love it. For me, it suits perfectly that type of environment. But well, how I got into the tennis, like I said, I'm not a tennis player, at all. I wasn't even a tennis fan before that. Like, I never even watched it before that. Before I was working with the best in the world, so it's pretty funny. But it goes back to what you asked me before about that quote about who gets you there, what keeps you there.
Yeah. Okay. So
I was living in Australia at the time, and my wife's from here, so that's why we're living here. But we were in the process of moving back to the U.S.
Okay.
There's this tennis professional who we have a mutual friend, a couple of friends who are mutual friends. So this tennis pro, I met him once when he first migrated to the U.S. He was like 13 or 14, but I didn't really see or spoke to him since then. Like, just didn't really know him, but knew of him. But we had this mutual good friends. Yeah. And so that mutual friend thought, you know what? I'm going to go to Australia because I watched Dimitri play the Australian Open, and I could go hang out with Jason and Renee, my wife.
Yeah.
So it'd be a win-win. I'm like, yeah, cool. So as they came over here, we just happened to be talking. And at that time, so it was Dmitry Tursunov was the first pro I was working with.
Mm-hmm.
They were in the process of, they wanted to fire their physio and strength coach guy like this. He was a guy who's kind of did a bit of everything. They wanted to get rid of him. And Tom, our mutual friend, was like, and Vitaly, the coach, was like, hey, Jason does this, what he does. Like that's what he's been. By then I was already 10 or whatever years into working with a lot of high level stuff. I was already known for doing what I do.
Yeah.
So they came to say, hey, like, we know you're moving back to the U.S. He was based in the U.S. And just asked, hey, would I be interested in trying out tennis? I was like, cool. So I flew over early, did like a little camp with him and another player, Igor Kunitsin.
Yeah.
Did like a little mini camp with them. That went pretty well. I kind of liked the way it was set up. They liked the way I was working. So they said, hey, well, traveling and working on tour is much different than just going to the gym and training and practicing, right?
Yeah.
It's a huge difference. So, why don't we go to a couple tournaments and see how that goes? Mm-hmm. And that went really well. And then, I just got stuck there. And then, after like a very short period, like all the players, because I just approached things differently because I wasn't like everyone else doing everything else.
Yeah.
I would go to the physios and other coaches and just say, hey, I have this idea. What do you think? I would just share my thoughts, even if I look like a complete idiot. Because I figured, well, why wouldn't I just share? That's one of the big things that I do all the time anyway, is I just think about, well, I want to try this. Has anyone else tried it? If not, why? And if yes, how'd it go? You know what I mean? And give me your feedback about it. And, I just went. The first two athletes I had, after maybe 6 months, 4 or 5, maybe 6 months of training, they used to do this high performance profile thing, where like twice a year they would just take all the top guys and guys, it was ATP, and just test them for all these different performance markers, like their fitness, their core strength, all that stuff.
Sure.
And both my guys were just destroying it. Like there was this like core endurance like exercise that this doctor and this physio structured together.
Right.
And they're banging out reps, right? And the guys always just stop there. They're like, hey, but I want to see how they go. Like, what do you mean? He's like, listen, the guys are like 42 reps or whatever it was now. And before this, the top guys get to like 9 and 12 and they're falling apart.
Wow.
He's like, so I think we're good. I'm like, what are you doing with them? I'm like, oh, well, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
So I did all kinds of stuff. But anyway, so that's how I kind of got there. But traveling on the tour, to your second part of your question, sorry. It's for me, I love it because it's always on. Meaning you're in different time zones almost every other week.
Yeah.
You're in and out of airports constantly. We're on
different
like
beds,
different food that's available,
yeah.
what equipment we have available as far as training space and gyms and weather. So we're literally constantly changing the time zones, the food available. But we still have to perform week after week. We don't know our schedules, right? Meaning we know when we're going to play tomorrow the night before. Yeah. Like literally, right? And then on the day you might be third on, but that might be in 2 hours. It might be in 10 hours. It might get changed to the next day. So everything you have to be adaptable very quick. You have to be able to react and respond quickly and still make sure that your player is fresh. Maybe not feeling good because it doesn't matter how they feel, right? Everyone's sore and aching and has problems and stresses, but make sure that they're fresh enough and ready to play when it's time to perform. Yeah. Right? So you have a lot of things that you can't control that are always changing. Absolutely. That are very important, like sleep, what time of day it is, what food they have available. So you have to be like just on point all the time. And the thing too that I like about it is that even as a strength conditioning coach or performance coach, anything and everything I do today with you, the entire world's going to see if I screwed it up or not the next day. Yeah. Right? Like it's going to be obvious if we've been doing this and they go out and they don't perform that way, it's going to be obvious if something I did helped or hindered their performance. Yeah. Right. I know it's not all just on me. That's just how I look at it. Obviously, there's a lot of variables like their mindset, their the opponent, the environment. There's a lot of variables, obviously. But you get what I'm saying. Yeah. Like it's very, very like everything. There's nowhere to hide. Yeah. On the tour, there's nowhere to hide. Like even from the other coaches and trainers, like there's nowhere to hide. It's very stressful. And then you have players that because they're always on the road, like some of the younger ones, like they're new to the environment. They're always away from friends. They're never around friends or family. Yeah. They're basically in airports, in hotels, 24/7. If we're awake, we're all together and we're working. Right? There's like not structured official like downtime because we can't plan ahead. We don't know. Yeah. Like for the most part, we don't know. So I like it because it's very, very performance based. You have minimal resources and time, right? Because you can't control it. Of course. And you have a massive outcome that you're supposed to achieve. So I love that. It's like perfect for me.
I think it's very like I don't think people realize that. Like maybe from an outsider looking in, I don't think people would actually realize just how much work obviously goes into all that. And like you sort of said, like yes, okay, you may know when a tournament's on, but the actual day to day, like I said, it probably sounds like it's ever changing. Like, because you don't know whether you're playing like in the morning or night, or
Yeah, that's
you
right.
don't know how many
You never
days.
really know. Yeah.
There's a lot of
Guesstimating, you know.
Yeah.
But a match that might be before you might go for 4 hours. Someone might retire in 10 minutes.
Sometimes it's men's games. I mean,
yeah, you go to Grand Slams, they're like
Nadal,
hours and hours.
Marathons, or
I mean, you never
crazy.
know. So you have to just imagine that, like or the weather kind of comes and goes and rains and stops and starts. Like imagine like you're about to perform at the biggest stage in your particular sport.
Yeah.
And you show up on the day. You're there in the morning. You do all your prep. You do all your warm up hips. You do all your stuff. Like you do, and then you're like getting ready to perform. And then you're like, okay, no, it's They're going a little bit longer now. Now it's a little bit longer. Now it's a rain delay. So now it's like you thought you'd be playing around 11ish, but now it's already 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
Right. Or now it's 3 o'clock. Now it's 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
And then you're constantly kind of this like I'm about to go on, but I'm not. I'm starting. I'm stopping. So being able to manage that energy, so that way they don't. By the time they get on the court, they're not just spent from just like sitting there waiting or anticipating or like, it's tough. It's tricky. It's a bit of art form in that, the timing and the rhythm and it goes really even further in why you really need to know your people really well. Yeah. So that way you can help manage that energy.
No, well that goes really well into the next part, and I suppose touched on. I know we're and that's sort of I suppose the relationships. I suppose can you touch on just the importance of why? I mean you have answered some of this, but can you further touch on the importance of why it's so important to build rapport? And I suppose develop that sort of relationship, not only I suppose with your clients, but also, like you said, with the rest of the coaching staff.
Yeah, I mean, like, regardless of the environment, I mean, you're working with people.
Yeah.
Like, so you can know all the fancy numbers and data and your science behind what you're doing, but if you can't work with people, like the thing is it's about having trust. Okay, you can have all the right ingredients all perfectly lined up and in place. Yeah. But if you lack trust, those are always going to be limited. You're going to be limited on what you'll be able to get that person to do. You need to have this rapport because there's going to be times where maybe you need to speak up and you need to give them a hard word. You know what I mean? And if you don't have that relationship where you can do that, okay, well, one, it just turns into an argument. Yeah. Right. There's not much positive outcome out of that, and maybe even you lose your job, and you get a poor reputation of being like an asshole. So, I don't know. Yeah. No, I mean that's like a side thing, but like I mean because it's everything. I guess the easy answer to your question, like why is it important to build rapport and I'm not sure what else you said, but like having that rapport and that relationship is because it is everything, especially in these individual sports, like say in the tennis. Yeah. I mean you're spending so much time together. If you don't like each other or you can't at least get along on some level, it's not going to be a comfortable environment. Like you need to have that. And there's times there's so much stress internally and externally, like outside of the environment, like you need to have that relationship with each other where you can kind of help each other out, support each other. You can kind of keep things going. But if you really want to get to like what they need and where they're at right now, if you don't have the rapport, you're not gonna get them to make any change. Yeah. You're not gonna get them to want to do more. You know what I mean? Does it make sense?
Is that sort of something like
actually, can I add one thing to that?
Yeah, no, of course.
Because the other part is the athlete's job as well. Like so, like we always talk about like coaches and our language and our body language and build relationships and building rapport and all that kind of stuff to help our clients, whoever they may be, for them to come up with the solution on how to help themselves and make those decisions. But it also goes to the athletes. Like I want to do everything as a coach I can to make you want to do your best, right? Yeah. I want you to want me to be successful. Yeah. Right. But also I want the athlete needs to understand that like to get the most out of your coaches and your team, you need to do the same thing. Yeah. Right. You also need to learn how and understand that your coach is a human, right? They may have a family that they're not with all the time. They may have some other external things happening to them. They may, whatever the thing is, right? It may not be negative things like I'm saying, but it could be positive. But you need to know your coach. Yeah. And your physios, your staff, right? Your team.
We're all humans.
We're all humans, and like you want them to like do that extra bit for you. Then make them want to do that. Yes. Like don't be a prick, right? Be grateful for what's around. Give feedback. And timely feedback and appropriate feedback. But like, it goes both ways. Yeah. Right. It's the relationship part. So people often forget that part.
Yeah. You've hit that straight into my next thing, and that's what I was talking about. Why? Yeah, I suppose it's that I was going to ask you why is it so important, I suppose, to keep asking questions and keep sort of getting that sort of feedback. But I think you're kind of
I mean, it's important obviously because things are always changing and evolving. Like you need to can't be assuming that you're on the right track.
Yeah.
You know how many times that I thought like I knew why someone was doing something.
Yeah.
And look, not to be cocky, but I'm pretty good at like reading people and the vibe and kind of seeing, well, this happened. That's because that led to this. It's how connecting those dots.
Mm-hmm.
But even with that, there's so many times where I was like, yeah, I knew what was happening and why it was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And then suddenly, like, I ask a question and they come up with the answer. I'm like, oh wow, that's so obvious. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you got to get their feedback because you never really know.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have to. Like, even just from a learning perspective, coach development stuff is like I've learned more from my athletes and my clients than I have from like studying a textbook or a course. Of real world application.
Yeah.
Because like my one tennis player, for example, or my wrestler, or whatever, they have had all their own experiences. They've had lots of different coaches and been exposed to lots of different things that I haven't. Like that was their experience.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't I listen to them? And at the end of the day, they're the expert on them. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So why would I not want to constantly be asking questions and finding that information out?
Good point.
So
yeah. Now, I suppose one of the biggest challenges of most athletes or clients, or let's say more the athletes going in, is more that dealing with ego.
Oh yeah.
How, I suppose, do you manage that? Like, especially like when we're talking some players, I imagine you would train some of these players would be a bit younger, like the sort of like early teens, maybe. They got more that sort of
like the early 20s ones. You got those ones. Yeah, you got the young ones. That
obviously, I'm sure the seasoned ones,
yeah.
Obviously they kind of, a bit more mature and stuff.
Sure,
I suppose, how do you keep ego in check?
Well, I mean, that's why I do so much jiu-jitsu and wrestling and stuff. So just in case. When in doubt, just choke them out, right?
Yeah. No.
Actually, it's funny. I've had coaches come to me and say, listen, I've had this player wants me to work with them. But I told them I'm only going to come if you come.
Yeah.
And I won't say the names because they're quite famous of having some, issues on court and stuff. 2 different ones over the years. Yeah. And they said, but I'm going to come if you come because I figure that, like, one, you're good at dealing with these because I have a reputation of taking the people that no one else can seem to work with. Like, they're crazy, that like really bad at it. Not attitudes, but they're just intense and they're kind of crazy. And said they would tell me, like, listen, like, one, you're good at dealing with these people, somehow getting them to do the work, even though no one else seems to be able to do it.
Yeah. And
worst case scenario, figure like if they get out of hand, you can just choke them out and it's all fine. So, or they know that you're going to hurt them. So, shouldn't say that out loud, but I haven't hurt anybody yet, so it's okay. Just knock on wood. Anyhow, look, the thing is I think first and foremost, I need to understand that like ego is good. It's not a bad thing necessarily. Okay. It can be like in the term of people use it in that context of like being really arrogant and rude and disrespectful, like that part of ego. But if you want anyone to perform their best, like to really, really be able to get out there, put themselves in front of the world and on the line, if they don't have that strong, deep self-belief, that ego, they're not going to be able to do it. Like it's part of it's. They have to have that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, they can learn to, and as they mature, they can learn how to like interact with people better and know, how to speak to people. Like something to learn that, right? So for me, look, I first and foremost, I understand that. Listen, you know what? Especially an individual sport, like I know there's going to be a certain amount of ego. Like they're the ones, they're the boss, right? They want to be the one in charge.
Yeah, that's kind of like what more time. It's because obviously like the spotlight's on them. Like
exactly.
They're the player. It's not. That's
absolutely. Like, and in a lot of sports, if you're not working for the team, the athlete's the one who's hired you. Yeah. Like, so that athlete might like, for example, we're talking tennis. My tennis players pay me directly, right? So, like, in a way, I work for them.
Yeah.
Right? So often there's this weird thing of like, well, I'm paying you, so like I'm in charge. That's what the athlete's thinking, right? It's like, well, no, but you're paying me to like coach you, to help you with these things, right? So you're paying for my expertise, not for you to tell me what we need to do, right? Yeah. So there's this weird it's a weird thing where normally like, you work for a team if you're the coach. Yeah. Well, that player got recruited by the team, and the coach is the boss, right? Like usually it makes sense, right? Yeah. And so like in a lot of these individual sports, the other way around, like it's almost like the athlete's the boss because they're the ones paying, not the team.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
How do you deal with that though, in terms of that sort of I guess that sort of relationship, or because
look, you just
demands.
I mean, like firstly, just setting the table from the start, just understanding like, well, what are your expectations of me, and I'm going to tell you my expectations of you, and then we're going to find, before we start, we're going to find sort of how that's going to work, and of course we can adapt and evolve this as we go. So it's just having that clear sort of understanding of like, okay, where's the line, right? Yeah. And for me, it's like, listen, you can get pissed off all you want, you can get frustrated, you get angry at me. I've had many athletes, even in the gym, just lose their shit, just like get so upset because I'm just like getting them to do that next little thing, right? Or making them do something they're very uncomfortable, or I'm doing things to purposely frustrate them and fluster them and distract them while they're practicing because that's the environment they have to work in. They have to be able to not let those distractions get their emotions.
Yeah.
So in those moments, there's some heated conversations for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Times where I've just lost it.
Yep.
I mean, I had one girl, actually it was the first time it was a guy. We're in the middle of doing whatever, and he starts getting on his phone, and we had this clear boundary about, okay, you're not on your phone while we're doing this, right? And it was once, second time, there was a third time, and I just grabbed his phone. It was literally just got this phone, one of these expensive iPhones, right? And it smashed into the wall, and it stared at him, and he started going off, and I'm like, those are rules, man. I don't care. So sometimes I'm not often like that. Don't get me wrong. It takes a long time for me to have that, but I right off the bat I let people know this is my line, and probably the line really for me, and what's helped me is you can get mad and frustrated all you want.
Yeah,
it's part of it. It's normal. You're human. You're pushing yourself. It's very difficult, but never ever make it personal.
Okay. Yeah.
If you say anything personal, if you start to get personal about it, calling people names, swearing at the person, insulting any of us on the team, that's where the line gets drawn. Yeah. That is, you don't do that. It's okay to get mad. Smash a racket, throw a ball, fucking punch a wall. I don't really care.
Yeah.
Right? Just do whatever the hell you need to do, and then get over it and get back to work. Right? But you make it personal, then we have problems.
Okay.
So that's probably one of the biggest ways. Just make it very clear from the start.
Yeah, it's keeping that long. I would say
having those boundaries.
Yeah.
And some people I give bigger boundaries to others, and I kind of close it in as we go because I kind of maybe they're younger and I kind of get where they're at. So some are a bit more patient with, and I kind of let them get away with it a bit more. Other times, other people I'm like, no, you know better. I know that you're doing this purposefully, so and I know you're able to do differently.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about this.
Okay.
So
now, what about in terms of sort of extrinsic, those other sort of factors, things, I guess maybe just the pressure of being, I suppose, an athlete, whether it's it could be the media, it could be obviously that balance of trying to go social life. Because they're humans as well.
Sure,
so obviously, maybe people seem to forget there's obviously a lot of maybe other stresses that they can have the same stresses like any other person. They play a sport. How do you manage that? Or how I'm sure you'd obviously a few of your athletes they bring into training sessions or bring into all these things from the outside. Yeah, how do you limit? Eliminate or how do you control it?
Yeah, of course. I mean, look, like with all these questions, I mean, we can speak days on this. There's a lot of different things, but I mean, firstly, you're right. I mean, they're human.
Yeah.
Right. They have relationships outside of their sport. They have responsibilities outside of their sport. They might have responsibilities within their sport. A lot of the players I work with are, they're the top players. Yeah. And so they have sponsorships, they have managers, they have agents, so they have all these outside responsibilities through media, activities. They have to do certain things for their Nike sponsorship or not do certain things for this. Yeah. So there's a lot of other things that they have to be constantly mindful of and deal with, not to mention their family, their partners, I've had so many of my athletes not do well, having the phases where they're struggling, had nothing to do with their physical ability, right? It was because they had some relationship with their partner was going bad. Yeah. They were having a divorce, or they're having a big breakup or a big fight, or their kid was sick or whatever, depending on the sport. And they're human. It's very difficult to separate that stuff sometimes. Yeah. Right? So again, I mean, I think a big part of it is first and foremost, like I said, it's that setting the table thing, understanding from the start that, like I said, they're human. There is going to be things that we can't control that are going to happen. Yeah. There's going to be obstacles. There's going to be some life things like Aryna, the girl I work with, at the end of last year, when we were starting our preseason. It's the only time that we have a block of actual training, right, to work on something because we're just competing all year long. And her father dies. Yeah. And then she has a huge breakup with her coach at the same time. So that's going to be a pretty productive training camp, right? So but we still need to do the work. We still have to find a way to, to keep moving forward. Yeah. So these things happen. So first and foremost, you need to understand that there's going to be things that you can't control. Yeah. But there's all going to be things that we can control. Yeah. If they come in, you can't, if you think that you're going to keep them away from all that stuff, I think you're doing them a disservice. Okay. Because things are going to get in the way. Yeah. And I think how I deal with it is more so a longer term approach. There's no magic pill bullet thingy, right? Yeah. It's more if you know your person really well, then you can help them get through that better. Yeah. If you know your person really well, then you can help them find that switch during this training session to get through it, right? So there's that part. Yeah. The other part, though, I look at it more of a long-term development thing, meaning if someone is having these, if they're smaller sort of things and they're influencing and impacting their performance negatively, then we really need to work on that, right? Because what we need to do is teach them how how to hit that switch when they walk in the door or onto the court on the field. How to like, hey, that's gone. Focusing on what I'm doing in front of me right now is all that matters, right? There's going to be many times that we have to perform when we don't feel our best, right? Emotionally, physically, mentally, whatever.
Of course.
And so if you want to be the best at whatever you do, you need to learn how to do what needs to get done today, regardless of how you feel.
Yeah.
So it's teaching them various techniques on how to manage that.
Yeah.
Some of it is managing, like giving. Sometimes it's just, you know what, this is a pretty serious thing. Go take some time off and deal with it. Yeah. Just go deal with it. Just get the hell out of here because you're wasting your time. You're gonna feel worse because you know you had a crappy practice.
Yeah.
You know, on and on, all these things. So sometimes it's like, look, just go have a break.
Yeah.
Is it perfect timing? No, but just go get it done.
Okay.
But overall, I think you need to help them learn as a human how to deal with adversity.
Yeah.
How to manage their energy. So maybe it's even like we get through this and I start giving them some, you know, like we have this thing called legs up breathing, right? So like tonight, legs up breathing. It's just a way of just help them physical recovery, but that breathing exercise just helps them have a moment of just like just switching off. Just find lots of different ways of applying it. But conceptually, does that make sense what I'm saying?
No, it does, yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things there. You can't stop it from happening, but you can teach them how to manage it best.
Yeah.
Right? And also to be prepared for that.
Do you think that's a mistake a lot of people make? It's that maybe, or some coaches make, it's kind of like dismissing that it can happen, like not acknowledging that, hey, this stuff can come sometimes.
Absolutely.
And they just maybe they seem to think, oh, well, let's ignore it, or let's just try.
Yeah, some of them just like try to be sort of really aggressive about it, or angry about it, or they be like complacent about it, like they kind of blow it off, like you said, or no, I just get through it, or just toughen up, or this or that. Like I'm not saying you need to baby people because you don't. Like I said, you need to get them to be able to do things when they don't feel like doing them.
Yeah.
Right. That's a big part of our job. No matter what role you play, that's a big part of our job.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if you're general public or whatever. Like it's the same thing. Right.
Right.
So yeah, I think people do either over focus on it or under focus on it. But again, that's why you need to know your person.
Yeah.
That's why you need to know your team, your people, because then you could best figure out how to apply that, how to attack it.
Yeah.
So
no, awesome. Now, so there's a bit of an expanded question here, but we kind of talked a lot about, there's a lot of things out there in terms of how coaches use things such as, like data and I'm sure like all that sort of stuff has its place, but
yeah, for sure.
I feel like with you as well, you've always struck me as someone that, like I said, you obviously acknowledge it can be useful and we can do it, but you don't obviously rely on it purely. Like I think
that's right.
You're right. I suppose can you talk about I suppose the power of I suppose like obviously body language, words, and just how much of the impact it can have in terms of dealing with your athletes, from you talking to them, but also reading theirs as well.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the first part of your question, obviously, and I kind of mentioned this earlier, I suppose, is that definitely, collecting data, relevant data that's useful, having, the numbers, having our various devices these days. We have some great technology these days. I mean, I remember when like the Omega Wave thing came out with the HRV, it was like this massive machine that cost thousands and thousands of dollars. Now you just get an app on your phone, Yeah. So it's like, it's great. And we do use these things sort of intermittently in different times with different, environments. Again, kind of more based on the athlete, like what they feel like if they have that data. Like some people are really driven by that. Yeah. Others are like more annoyed
with it. Some people don't care.
Yeah, they don't care. They just think it's it's like, I go to some athletes, if I start going, okay, we're going to use this app and we're going to collect this data, they're just like right away they switched off. It's like, yeah, okay, I want someone else next. Right? Because they're like, this guy's just like, he's going to be heading some textbook. He's going to give me some spiel about something, but he's not going to listen to me. Yeah. Right? So they definitely have its place. Right, because you need to know what you're doing is working, right? You need to be able to measure things, right? Yeah. More than I did say I listen to my gut a lot, but I do check. Yeah. I do make sure that what we're managing is working and all that good stuff. So, has its place. But you're right. I don't rely on those things. Yeah. Like it's not like I'll use them when we need them. They're a tool. Yeah. And like any other tool, I got to know when to use it and when to back off and how am I going to use it, right? So, obviously, I think especially this younger generation of coaches coming through and they've become so reliant on the technology because it's so available and our whole life is about technology, right? Like live without your phone for a second, see what happens. Like, you want to do anything, find anything, hear anything, whatever, connect with anything, it's your phone. Boom, right away. I'm sorry. So, there's this habit, I guess, people falling in overusing technology and forgetting these softer skills of actually being able to communicate, right? Be able to speak to people, knowing, like you said, how I carry myself, and the words I use, the tone I use, the speed I speak, all that stuff is going to have a massive impact on how the person is going to respond, You know, I could say the right words, but if I say it very aggressively, your initial reaction to me is like, "Well, what the hell?"
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If it's not the right time. If I'm trying to get you to do something and I'm telling you have to do it, initially you right away have a resistance. Like this whole psychological reactance theory. I don't know if you've heard of this. Is like it's like no matter if I suggest something to anybody, right away there's already a little bit of even if you trust me like nothing else, you still have this little bit of hesitation until you understand. Well, why am I saying that?
Okay.
Like, why do I want you to do this?
Yeah.
Right? Even if you trust me and you'll just do anything I say, right? There's still initially this resistance to like, okay, wait, he's telling me to do this, but I still need to have a bit more information on why.
Sure.
So imagine if you don't have that full trust. There's obvious, so I got to be able to not just tell them what to do. I need to find out, well, what do they think? And then why? And then go, let's kind of work together on getting there.
Yeah.
Because I need you to tell me why you're going to do something, not me to tell you that.
Going around the other way, putting it the other way around, what about more, can you talk about in terms of the athlete as well, and maybe they're reading things like the body language and...
Oh, 100%. Like, which I kind of touched a little bit on before, is like, if I'm walking around pacing and stressing out or twitching and fiddling, like, I actually have a habit of doing that. Sometimes I'll just, because I'm very, like, a lot of energy all the time.
Yeah.
So I'll just be sitting, like, tapping my foot or moving my leg.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not because I'm nervous, it's just because I have to sit still for too long.
Right on,
And, like, Aryna, for example, drives her nuts. She just look at me, Jason. I'm like, I know what she means.
Yeah.
So like, I still get caught up in it, right? So, but our body language and the words we use, of course, like it's going to have a direct impact on our athletes.
Yeah.
Right. And if our job is to get them to perform the best, then we need to keep that stuff in check. You know, and sometimes look, there's times where like, let's say they had a match and they lost, or it was an ugly loss, or you did something, you know, during or before the match that kind of they used it as a distraction, right? It like got into their head.
Yeah.
You know, and then after the match, it's just like, there's been matches where I've just not said a single word. So they're still doing their routine. They're doing their warm downs. They're doing the stretch, like just on their own though. And I'm sitting there, just quiet, not saying a single word the entire time.
Yeah.
Won't even make eye contact with each other. We just sit there in the same room, right next to each other, like, but we're not even there.
Yeah.
You know, and then you know, and sometimes they'll have like times where you just need to know if I know my player well enough, and let's say they're acting really flat, but normally they're pretty hyped up, I need to find a way to get them hyped up.
Yeah.
Right? If they're normally pretty mellow, they need some time alone and they're quiet, you know, they do it, but they're pacing around and joking with everyone, I need to pull them up and get them to get away from everybody.
Yeah.
Right? So I need to get them to make sure that they're doing what they need to do, but I also need to act the same way. Meaning if they're over aroused, I can't be aroused either. I can't be walking around all hyper and crazy, right? I need to check myself. So how that is, the details of that are very specific to that moment and that individual. Right? I don't know if I'm answering the question.
No,
clearly.
you are.
Yeah, okay.
No,
so
you are actually.
I don't know if you want to talk about specific words or whatever, but like,
that actually was one area specifically, which I think would be more for myself curious is I suppose how with the athletes dealing with losses and adversity.
Yeah.
Just maybe some examples of how, you know, ways you've been able to control when I suppose maybe things haven't gone maybe the athlete's way,
Sure.
and I suppose I don't know whether it's like
in
the locker room or what.
Yeah,
what
so there's
like,
a few. Again, it can vary. Obviously, you know, like I consciously try not to answer questions with "it depends," but I want to. Every question people ask me, it depends.
Yeah.
You know, the 2-word on go. To go back to the word thing, the body language. One of the things that a simple one to as an example is like, besides that psychological reactance thing, I don't want to tell you things. I want you to tell me what you're going to do or how you're going to do it. There's a few little ways of getting people to do that.
Okay.
But also there's that whole concept of like the do versus don't. Meaning I want to tell you what I want you to do, not what I don't want you to do.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if I want you to like not serve into the net, I'm saying don't serve into the net. They're going to serve into the net, right? Because all they heard was serve into the net. Like their brain goes, oh, they cut that part, right?
Yeah.
I know a lot of people have heard of this thing, but you'd be surprised how often you do it without realizing it.
Okay.
Right? So just be very mindful of those like little subtle things.
Sure.
You know, if they have an injury, being really careful about the words you use about. Like if their back is bothering me, oh yeah, it's really unstable. Man, if you tell someone with back pain that they have an unstable back, suddenly they're going to move a lot less and be paranoid about doing anything because it's just gonna fall apart all of a sudden, right?
Yeah.
So just being really mindful of that kind of stuff is important to make sure that, you know, if something happens, something bad happens, I don't freak out. I just get really calm and I'm chill. Yeah. More than normal. Normally I'm pretty like, hey, let's go, right? But when something bad happens, I'm just cool. I'm good, right? It's like, okay, it happened, and so this is what we're gonna do about it.
Is that something you've learnt over time, or is that something you've always kind of just picked up on straight away?
I mean, for me, I feel like it's something I've just been that way for a long time, and then as I got older and more, you know, experienced, I started to realize what those things are.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, that's called this. Oh, I didn't know.
It was
I
like one of
always
those
do that,
things
yeah.
like you said you didn't have the term, but you knew.
Yeah, I was doing it
You were
just out
doing
of,
it.
for whatever reason. Like I don't know how I picked it up or taught it or
Yeah.
it just was doing it.
Yeah.
And then later on I realized, oh, that's called this. Oh, okay. And I still have that where I'll be talking about something and some expert in a specific niche will go, oh yeah, that's called this. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Take a note of that. Didn't know that. That sounds great. Or I'll talk about breathing and then like some yoga expert comes in and goes, oh, that's called Sakawakadigi or whatever. I don't.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, not to insult anyone, but like just don't know the names. But I'm like, oh, it's like 3,000-year-old way of breathing. I'm like, oh, like just last year they just came up with that from some research they did.
Yeah. Yeah.
But dealing with losses, I mean, that's again, it's part of it.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Right. I think probably one of the biggest things that I like to do is to know when to just let them have their moment. If they come off of their field or court and they just embarrass themselves, they feel embarrassed, they're humiliated, they're upset, they're angry, they had their moments, they screwed it up, they didn't pull the trigger, or they didn't feel like, whatever the thing was, they just were just overwhelmed with this emotion. Let them have their time, man.
Yeah.
Like you don't need to fix that, right? They need to fix that. It's not my problem, right? My job is to make sure that the next day they can keep going, and to figure out, well, what worked that day and what didn't work that day, and then what are we going to do about it? Right? So I'm already processing that stuff, but I'm not talking to them about it. I'm just letting them have their space and time. Right? If they're angry and they're slamming stuff and they're getting mad, I've had so many times athletes afterward just losing their shit. Right? And sometimes even like I've had athletes like talking about us, the team, like, oh, I just don't know about you. I don't trust any of you guys. You tell me this and this happens. We all think we're getting fired, basically, right?
Right.
I mean, I don't think that usually when they're doing that. I just know that they're in this moment and they're frustrated and they're trying to find a reason and they're so upset and they don't know what to do and why it's happening.
Oh yeah.
And they're just saying things. It's like, okay, let them have it.
Let them have it. Yeah.
And then they're gonna settle down and then we're gonna have a little bit of like subtle talks. Yeah. And then we'll kind of find this thing that's like, okay, yeah. And then 99% of the time, that later that day or that moment or even the next day, it's like, hey, look, they're more settled, they kind of more rational.
Yeah.
And then we could go, okay, let's look at what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of figure out when to talk about what happened. Like the details about what you did or didn't do or how or why and what are we going to do next time about it to make sure we can avoid that.
Sure.
Right? So just part of the deal, brother.
Yeah. No, good answer. Now, going on to another thing, you've onto the coaching sweet spot. See something you've been developing. Could you, I suppose, talk about first what it is, and I guess also describe some of the work you've been doing recently in terms of the whole sort of like performance coaching and mindset, mentorship, and
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, the coaching sweet spot's my business.
Yeah,
because it's a cool ass name, man. Come on,
I love it. It's great.
Well, I was just thinking, like, originally it kind of came about because I always looked at things. I used to talk a lot about this years ago.
Yeah. And
it probably does come from that martial art background where, like in martial arts, where it's combat sports or traditional martial arts, it's really so much more than just learning how to fight.
Yeah.
It's about developing you as a person, right? As a competitor, as a performer,
off
the mat, how you are as a human is just as, if not more important, as you are as a competitor, right? Because they're going to have a strong impact on each other. And, when it comes down to stressful moments, who you are as a person is what's going to matter, right? That's who's going to come out successful, right? So, that's what we focus on so much. So I've always had that sort of approach where, like, it's a person-first approach. And again, it's not a new thing. It's been around forever. People talk about it over the years. The last few years, there's probably been more conversations about like the language, the person first, knowing your person, all that stuff. So for me, the coaching sweet spot was, initially it was like I always looked at this hierarchy of like it's first the person, second the athlete, and then third the specific player, like what position they play, what sport they play, what level they are. So what I mean is like first I need to know who are you, like. Who are you individual? What's your personality like? What you don't like? What experiences you have? What country are you from? What, exposure you've had to whatever, right? Just who you are. I need to know. The more I know about that, the better it's going to be. Then as an athlete, which again is just what I mean by that is like, okay, you want to do this sport at this level, in this position, whatever, right? Now, do you have the basic physical attributes and capabilities to do that? Yeah. So let's fill in the gaps if you don't, right? And then the last thing is like the sport specific thing, right? The player specific, the position specific, whatever. But and what I found over the years is that most people go the other way around. They get a new client, they go all the sport specific stuff because that's what the athlete wants and that's what they think they want, or the parents or the coaches. It's like, oh, let's do all these specific drills and do this and that, and it has to be. Which again, it's not wrong or right. It's just the way it is. Yeah. And then over time, they start to kind of work out and think, oh yeah, knowing the person is important, or it happens by accident. right? Where I always say, I need to do this on purpose. I start the work with the things that they think that they want, like the specific things. We need to do the work.
Sure.
But I'm looking at filling in the gaps and making sure I know who is in front of me.
Yeah.
So it kind of came about that where it's like, if you look at my logo, there's like a shield. And there's 3 little things on this around it, and one looks like a DNA strand because that's about who you are.
Yeah.
Another one looks like 2 hands sort of intertwined, shaking, like the relationship thing, and the other is like a wing, because again, that's my goal is to I want you to be self-aware, self-reliant, and just I want to help build the foundation so you can go and fly, and just take off and go wherever you want. And so the sweet spot part of it is literally just about that. It's like with every sport, everything. What is the sweet spot? It's like that perfect combination of all those things. Right? And what that combination for you and me is different.
Yeah.
And what it is for you right now is different than what it was last year or what it might be next year.
Yeah.
Right? So it's that's what that is. And the performance go, and so that's what it is. And to answer your question regarding what have I been doing, like most of my work in the sweet spot has been broken up in 3 parts. One is I still work with my athletes.
Yep.
Right, in a few different sports. A lot of it's online, and then I travel with a handful of them as well. Like mostly the tennis now with Aryna has been my main person I've been working with traveling, and then I have a few I do online with. And if I happen to be in the country where my online clients are, we'll do some face-to-face work. Yeah. Then I have my coach development side. I work with a lot of younger coaches because I'm just at that point in my career the last few years where I just want to share as much as I can. I've had a lot of different experiences, and I find that a lot of that's missing in a lot of the education that they're getting. Yeah. Right? So I do a lot of coach development stuff, run little, programs, some online, some face-to-face. Yeah. And in between all that, I do a lot of lecturing and workshops and teaching. Yeah. And I started the teaching side, even went into like the allied healthcare and the fitness sort of industry, because I wanted to look at, well, what are they teaching you right now? Yeah. And what's missing? Because then if I knew what you know and what you're missing, I would know how to better create my content as far as workshops and lectures and stuff. So. So that's really what we're doing, and I've been working with lots of athletes, like I said, I mean, got a whole bunch of championships in different sports over the last number of years, few gold medals and silver medals in three Olympics, 2 Commonwealth Games, a bunch of different. I don't know. I mean, I forget half of it to be honest, because I don't really do it for. I have this thing, and sometimes it works against me, but I have this thing where before we finish this thing, I'm already acting on the next. So I sort of missed that whole we should celebrate this win. We won the U.S. Open last year. The girls won the U.S. Open doubles.
Why don't you talk about that? That was
it was good. Well, that whole year, even just for their doubles, my player, she was having some ups and downs overall. She did well overall for the year, but there was lots of ups and downs. It was a tough year for her. The year before, she had a breakout year, and then last year was a bit of struggle because there's this expectation. Everyone knows who she is. There's a target on her back.
This is Sabalenka.
Her name's Aryna Sabalenka. Sorry, she's I don't know, maybe right now number 9 in the world or something.
She's in top 10.
Something like that. It kind of changes a little bit here and there, but
in doubles and singles.
Yeah, in singles and doubles, I think she's 4 or 5 or something. I don't know. Anyway, but so they had a great year in doubles, and at first she was very resistant to play doubles, but we were her coach, and we're well, no, it's competing, it's learning how to prepare for matches, it's practicing your reactions. It is a different game, yes, and your goal is to win all the Grand Slams as a singles player. We understand. And you're very young. She just turned 22 last week. So she's very, very young at this. So at the time she was 20. We're look, it's okay. Yeah. You got time, right? You got a lot to learn still. So slow down there. You know what I mean? So, so we got her to do doubles. And that year they won the Sunshine Double or something like this. So it's 2 major tournaments in Indian Wells and Miami, 2 huge ones. Yep. They won both of those back to back. And then, whatever, the next Grand Slam, they won the doubles. And they killed it in the doubles. I mean, they made so much money too, and it was crazy. So I'm are you happy you did some doubles now?
Yeah.
But that was great. That was cool. I mean, it was exciting. For me, it was a weird feeling because I think it was in the final semis or something like that of her singles. I think it was because she did okay in singles too. We were preparing for the match. I wasn't feeling well that day. I was having some health issues. I kind of just kept getting woozy and losing my balance. Yeah. And then as they were going out to the court, I was to the coach, so I said to Dimitri, I was man, I can't. Get the doc here now. I'm leaning against the wall, and I was screwed. I didn't show or tell anyone the whole time. I was just making sure she was ready for a match. As soon as she walked away with the escorts, I was okay, there's a problem, dude. I need to go. So they rushed me to the ER because I was literally just collapsing. I was passing out, having all kinds of weird stuff. Spent the overnight there. Eventually I went back. I got to the court, for the final.
What were you diagnosed with? What was the?
Still going through a little bit of that. I'm about 80% now. So I had all the markers for a number of things for from MS to these autoimmune diseases to they thought at the time I was having some sort of brain issue, blood flow to my brain was a problem, a stroke or something, because I had I ticked every box where literally there was no blood going to my brain, and they had rushed to the ER, so they rushed me to the hospital, Did all these tests, and all the blood flow was fine. But like I had all these parts of the markers where this is very bad, but then this should also be very bad, but it's not. So we don't know why.
Right.
So I've been going through some weird stuff, but I mean it's getting better.
Okay.
I mean I went to a point where I couldn't do 5 push-ups, like at all. I went back to the jiu-jitsu club when I came back home, and I thought, I'll just go hang out and maybe watch and just maybe do some drills like easy, because I could barely do anything. I jogged around the mat once, and before the second time I couldn't move my legs. I could not lift my legs up.
Like a fatigue point of view.
It was weird, but it was like for 5-6 days after that, every part of my legs hurt to touch. Like it felt like I ran like 5 ultra marathons.
Wow.
Just from I jogged lightly around the mat once.
Yeah.
So my nervous system was fried, and we think. Okay, when I say we, like everyone telling me off, because I often will have like 2 or 3 days where I won't go to bed. Like I literally don't close my eyes.
Yeah.
So that was probably the main thing, is the lack of sleep. So,
okay.
And it's sad because I've written papers on it, and I've even had some of the schools I've taught or went to school at, they asked me to use my papers as part of their curriculum, because it's, so I know a lot about sleep, but I just don't, I'm not the best with that. Anyhow, the U.S. Open was awesome. The whole year was awesome. Had some great celebrations, but the thing with this sport is that we win a tournament. You know what we do that day? We're on an airplane to the next one.
Yeah, I was about
you know what I mean? So it's like, and that's my mindset. It's like, okay, we won that. I'm like, yeah, cool, high five, pat on the back, let's go. We still got work to do. Like, we have to recover. We have to get on the plane. We have to make sure when we land, that's what you're going to do.
Yeah.
So my mind is already like, boom, boom, boom. I let them have that space to go celebrate, but only for a certain amount, because you know what? Next week we have work to do. You're going to start a tournament all over again.
Start fresh. That's right.
So anyhow.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I really like, going a little bit back to your answer, that the whole thing, I suppose, that developing that the coaching suites. But I really like how you approach that, because I had he's actually my wrestling coach. I had him on the podcast called Christopher Shen. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I've heard of him. I watch his team takedown thing. I get jealous. I'm like, oh man.
Yeah,
so much fun.
That was something for me which is really different for coaching, because he was the first coach I ever had where he actually had a set of criteria that he had to meet to train in his gym.
Yeah, I've heard.
And it was more about as a person. It had nothing to do with it. Ability, obviously, it's something important, obviously. But for him, it was you had to basically go through. It was about a month and a bit of a process where he wanted to basically find out, first have a conversation. Wanted to know first why you wanted to reach out to him in the first place, and then have a team member meet with you over breakfast, then references.
That's
and
awesome, man.
It was this, and I remember for me at the time, I thought it was so over the top.
You're like, what the heck's going on?
I didn't tell my younger, one of my brothers, he thought this is really
it's just wrestling. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, we're just playing sport here.
Yeah, I get it.
But now thinking about it, and obviously training him, working with him for about a few years now, I really, I guess I've seen a lot. I feel like as a person, I've gotten better doing it as well. But I kind of see why it's so important to, obviously, so it's not only that, just you need to know who the athletes, who the person is, and obviously they're a good person off the mat, on the mat, you don't want to.
It's very, very connected.
Yeah.
Especially you think about the sport that we do, the grappling type stuff. It's very you can hurt people. You want to make sure that you got and from a coaching perspective, because one of my old senseis in traditional sort of jiu-jitsu, we have this problem where one of his black belts he found out later on that he was a convicted rapist. Yeah. And he trained him from nothing to becoming a black belt. How would you feel about that, man? Teaching someone how to control people, physically control and harm people, that was actually a predator. Yeah. So I can get it, why, that's an extreme version, obviously, but just in general, you working very closely with each other. Yeah. It's important to be able to really know who's in front of you. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then how they're going to interact with your team, that vibe. It only takes that one person to screw it all up. So I like it. It is. That's a long process, a month, but but obviously he takes it seriously what he does. So I suppose once you're in, you're in.
Yeah,
that's good,
well, that's right. No, and I suppose going a little bit into that actually. So was that more you got that from the martial arts? You took that from martial arts into your coaching? Is that something? Or
I think so. I think I mean that's always been a part of it. Is just like I said, I kind of touched on before. Is we take that holistic approach. You're looking at developing the person, right? Not just can you fight? Because anyone can learn how to fight. Really, there's some X factors involved, but definitely I think that a big part of it comes from my background as a, I was born in Japan. I've been doing martial arts pretty much my whole life. Yeah. And I mean, obviously when I was homeless and stuff, like even actually, I would say martial arts saved my life. Yeah. Maybe sometimes this physical sense, but not in that. I don't mean in that sense. Meaning there's this local martial arts school. I used to, in the hood sort of thing. I mean, there was like an adult bookstores and porn shops surrounding it, and bars.
Right.
Like, so it was really definitely like this little shack surrounded by like dirty places.
Whereabouts was this?
This was in Washington State.
Washington State. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay.
And so I used to kind of just see it all the time. And before I had this issue, I was really big into martial arts. I was training all the time.
Right.
Before I was homeless, all that. And I used to go in and just watch and talk and try to get there. And I didn't have anyone to sign. I was underage. I couldn't get anyone to help me there. But the coaches there, the senseis there, they let me start up.
Yeah.
And I just signed paperwork. And a lot of them were like actually like drug enforcement agents and sheriffs and cops. A lot of the guys that were training there, which is pretty common with grappling type stuff.
Of course.
And but like that place, that saved my life. Like eventually, like everyone I have in my life now that I call my family, I met there.
Right.
Like all of them, like every single one of them. So like that's the place where like I really realized like, okay, because it was all about developing you as a person. They gave me the opportunity. This is the place where I said like for all of our belt levels, like the black belt levels, we had to like study like stacks of books, write reports on them. We had to give the thesis. It was like being at full on like PhD university kind of thing where like it was so intense on like your education about why you're doing this, about people, about society. I mean, I was like 20 years old, 19, 20. I had to write a paper on like which is like space condition, like controlling distance, and how that concept of space condition, that concept was related to today's society or something. It was like, I was like, what? I was like 19-year-old, man. Like, so it making you think, like, and so for me, it was, that probably was one of the biggest parts of getting into my coaching was just understanding people, man.
Yeah.
And helping them develop as a human, as a person. Because at the end of the day, that's what I want. I want you to be like happy and healthy and be successful, but like, I want you to be a good person.
Good person, yeah.
Not just like, hey, you want a trophy and you're a big prick that no one likes. Like, I don't want to work with you. I don't care.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, good answer. Now, some closing questions. Especially in this sort of period we're in now, what I suppose is your secret as far as maintaining? Maybe I don't know. You probably find it hard with all the stuff you do, but how do you maintain a good sort of work-life balance with, I suppose, with the family, coaching, traveling, all these things? How do you do it?
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, like at home I have 3 little ones, like young kids. So, well, first and foremost, I think just knowing my values as like a father and as a husband and then as a coach, right? Yeah. Knowing kind of like where I stand, like, and then communicating that with my wife and saying, listen, like even before because I took a little bit of a break for a couple of years of like not traveling so much because it used to be like 46 weeks a year I was traveling.
Wow. For
years I did that, but took a break, and then went back to traveling. But it was like before that happened, my wife and I discussed like, okay, this is where we are in our life right now. It allows me some freedom to go travel. This is how many weeks I'll travel. This is what sort of the structure of that. So I sort of put some limitations on that, how that would work. What do I do when I'm home versus when I'm away? So just having that sort of just communicating.
Do you take the family with you everywhere?
No, it's really, really hard. Yeah. My wife, before kids and all that stuff, came a few times to some tournament, like Paris and stuff like this, because it's Paris, but it's way too hard. Like I'm going nonstop. But so I think the other part is then understanding that like sometimes there's just not going to be a balance, man. Yeah. Like it's just the way it is. Like sometimes and if everyone who's involved understands, like okay, right now that's just the way it is. Yeah. And that's just the way it is. So just understand it's not like that forever. But the value, having those values and clear understanding of why I'm doing something will allow me to make that decision to say, okay, I'll commit to doing this right now. Yeah. Knowing that like it's getting us, there's a purpose behind it. Yeah. Right. It's not just I'm just busy, and distracted. You know what I mean? Yeah. So yeah, there you go.
No, good answer. Now, what advice would you give to someone who wanted to pursue a similar career to yours, in that sort of like high performance or strength conditioning? Yeah, what would you what advice would you give them?
I mean, that advice again, it would vary on who I'm talking to, like what age range, what experience level, what area they want to go in. But overview, I would say networking. Yep, is a big part of it, and I don't mean this cheesy ass fake networking thing where you're just trying to. Well, one, you have the people who are just trying to get information out of you constantly, right, and not really like even talking to you. They just want to like pick your brain, as they say, and all this and that. Yeah. Or really scripted, like you can see like they're like, oh, I'm gonna mirror you right now, and like you can see that they're like trying to like play these like weird games. Just be yourself, man. Like just be you, be genuine. If that's what you want to do, then just be in that environment. So network, get in front of those people, talk to them, learn from them, listen to your athletes, listen to your clients, ask them lots of questions, get their advice on how things are going. because it doesn't matter what you think. If you think it's going great, if they don't, it doesn't matter. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think the networking is one of the biggest part. But the other part I would say, kind of say two more parts. Just I'll be quick. I know we're taking a long time.
No.
One is, man, just start supporting each other.
Yeah.
Man, this industry is full of people who are just like, man, they just got so much trash talking. Like, that's not the way you're supposed to do this, or you're supposed to do it that way, or you don't know this, or blah blah blah. It's like, man, just calm down. You know what I mean? Like, just we're here to help each other out. This industry is getting torn apart. The fitness industry, strength conditioning, performance, because everyone's like has their little secrets, or they want to just like chop down everybody else.
Yeah.
So in a sense, I look at it as like give all the time, right? And then you can ask to take something later, right?
Yeah.
So just keep giving. If you go out to an event or you're networking, like, what can I do for you? Like you, Greg, like what can I do to help you with your business, your podcast, or whatever you're doing? Like, I'll just share all the time.
Yeah.
I'm just giving things out, like telling people like, this is what I think, this is what I do. Like with no like in my mind that like, well, I've given you something, you have to give me something. I don't care about that.
Yeah.
Just share, because one, it's that person's going to remember you doing that, and maybe that comes around. Maybe that person ends up working somewhere that you want to work, and they know, or they talk to someone that knows someone, and they're like, oh, hey, I know this guy.
Yeah.
Right? So you never know. You're not doing it for that reason, but that's how it works.
Yeah.
But it's also like, if I share, then I might learn something as well, because you might have some other ideas on top of that.
Yeah.
So just give, share lots, network, but just be genuine, man. Don't be a cheesy douchebag, weird, aggressive, dick. Just don't be a dick, man.
Yeah.
Just chill out.
Now, I'm going to ask you this, but I actually don't think I think I know the answer I'm going to get, but I'm going to ask you it anyway. But what I guess is something that you wish you had known prior to starting your career.
So you think I know what I'm going to answer? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Really? Because I don't know. I get asked these kind of questions a lot, and I struggle. Like, what would be the one thing you do differently, or what do you wish you knew then?
So I feel like you wouldn't do anything differently.
That's probably what I would say. I don't think I would, because like it might sound cliche or whatever, but it's like the things that I feel really like I've done really well with is because of all the other good and the bad, like all the crap, all the good, all the those moments. So like, okay, maybe my journey was a long way around than others. Like maybe it took me longer to do whatever else. I don't know. Maybe some faster, but like like it was all just part of it. Like it's just the way it is. I wouldn't go back and change anything really. Like I mean, I know people say that sometimes, but okay. So you got me. Yeah. I'm gonna go back one step with your. What would I give advice to coaches?
Okay.
And this is to get a job and to keep that job.
Okay.
Right? Is, man, learn. I know, even if you're niche and you're trying to be like the super hardcore niche guy, have a range of skills.
Yeah.
Have a broad range of things that you're good at doing, and show that you've done it. Go do it.
Yep.
Go put it in an application. Apply. Get some result in a lot of different things. Working with different people, different backgrounds, like guys that want to come on the tennis tour. I was like, listen, if you're just a strength coach or just a therapist, good luck. You need to do both. You need to have, at least as a minimum, have to be able to do the strength conditioning fitness work, the movement-based stuff, the recovery stuff, as well as your hands-on. And you don't have to be a physical therapist, but be able to manage the rehab. Yeah. Right? You need to have and then also, again, having those people skills. But you only get that through getting yourself exposed to different environments. Right? If you just do that one thing and work with this one people, you're going to be that specialist, which again, there's, like I said before, there's this time and place for them. But if you actually look into some of the most successful people in all different industries, they had a range of skills that they were able to pull from.
Yeah.
They didn't get stuck and locked into one thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Oh, percentage-wise, there's more of that. It actually reminds me of that book. What was that called? Actually, I think it was called Range. I can't remember who it's by. But that's actually a really good book. It talks about all these examples of all through history of some of the most successful people.
Yeah.
They were actually had a range of background that they were able to pull from, rather than just being so specialized, because they get stuck those blinders again. Anyhow, keep going. Here we go.
Okay.
Come on.
Now, this is a little bit of a how do I call it? A free question for you, but if you were the podcast host, let's say you could step into my shoes, what would you have asked yourself that I haven't asked you?
Man.
And you have to obviously answer it as well.
I have to answer too.
Yeah. Is there any?
I don't know. I mean, the thing about, like a lot of things that we talked about, each little part is such a big thing.
Yeah.
Like we could have unpacked any one of those things for weeks probably, right?
Yeah.
I really don't know. I was racking my brain about this.
Yeah.
Right now, it's just like, what one question would you ask?
It's not a bad thing.
Why? Yeah, okay, how about, I thought of a funny one just now, actually, is why, because I get asked this all the time. Like, why am I not why don't I have like gazillions of followers on social media with all the things that I've done and all the contacts I have? Because my network is ridiculous. Like the people I've worked with and I know, like any small percentage of that, most people would kill to have, like, be able to pick up the phone and go, I'm going to call this particular person or whatever. So why am I not like, with 100 million followers and doing, all the social media stuff? Because I know you're supposed to be doing that these days. Yeah. And I advise a lot of young guys to like, you need to be out there, because an athlete's going to look to hire you. First thing they're going to do is going to look at your social media, or a job. They're going to look these days. Yeah. So I have to answer that question too, do I? Well, I have to say, like, what I just say to you is, listen, I've actually studied a lot of this social media stuff, but like, it's like I'm kind of old school, new school, really. Yeah. Like, so I go through spurts where I like do a lot of social media, and then I kind of stop. I'm like, why do I need to tell people what I'm doing? Like, who cares? Like, I know I might be doing something that's pretty amazing, and I know people would love to see it, and like look at my perspective on it, and I like my values, and the thing I've been thinking about is I want to share more, so I need to do it through social media, right? So if I'm really going to live my values, I need to be more active on social media. But then I kind of slowly slip back into not doing it as much. I just get busy working and doing my thing. And because I'm just doing what I'm doing, I don't often think of it as like anything special. Yeah. You know what I mean? Which I guess is kind of normal. But so yeah, there you go. I came up with a question. That's good.
That's good.
I didn't think I was going to be able to answer that when you first said that.
No, you nailed it. Now, before we get on to a little final segment, which is our rapid fire questions, which you don't have in front of you, which is the idea.
Good.
Where can our listeners connect with you if they want to reach out to you or find you? Let's say online. Like,
sure. I mean, probably like Instagram. My handle is at Jason Stacy. Yep. _coach, but Stacy is spelled with no E, so it's STACY. So Jason Stacy _coach. Yep. I have a website, just basic website, nothing fancy, but you can contact me through the website. Yep. So it's it's thecoachingsweetspot.com. So thecoachingsweetspot.com. Just you have a look there. There's a few things on there. I haven't updated in like a year, but it's some good stuff. Yeah, it's all coming through. Okay. Yeah. So website, and maybe Instagram, Facebook. It's just Jason Stacy. Yeah, just social media, or email me through the website. Okay. And if you have any questions or whatever, just brilliant. Hit me up. Alrighty. So we're going to finish off with the 20 questions. So 20 questions. Okay. Fast responses. First thing that comes to mind. Oh, here we go. I'm ready. Ready? Should I warm up a little bit first, or what's up? Like, slap myself. Well, they're gonna start, and then they're gonna build up. Okay. All right. I'll do my best here. Here we go. Grass courts or hard courts? I love the grass. I love the feeling of the grass. Okay, it's cool. Flushing Meadows or Rod Laver? Oh, Flushing Meadows. Yeah. Roland Garros. Wait, what was the other one? Oh, Flushing Meadows and what? Rod Laver. Oh, Rod Laver. Oh. I'm 50-50 on those. Like they're about equal for me. Okay. Yeah. What about Roland Garros or Wimbledon? Yeah, Wimbledon. Yeah. I like the grass. Just the feel of the place. Federer or Nadal? Fed. He's a good friend. Hang out with him a lot. So. Jiu-jitsu or wrestling? Come on, man. Really? Depends on the day. I would say let me say jiu-jitsu, because I need to. That's what I'm working on. Okay. Learning the art of jiu-jitsu. Oh, good. Okay. Yeah. Arm bars or leg locks? I'm still kind of old school, arm bars. Okay. Yeah, I need to get into those leg stuff a bit more though. Favorite childhood hero? What? Childhood hero? Yeah. Does it have to be like a famous thing, you mean, or just anything? Anyone. Oh, there's a couple of people that I met in my life that helped me get off the streets and get my head straight and not be so crazy. Okay. So yeah, there's probably like one of my jiu-jitsu, aikido, jiu-jitsu guy, sensei, Jan, and then a woman named Charlene. And then the Padawans are my family, like, or my adopted family. Yeah. So all those people, like the people I met at this place that helped me, like, just, become me, basically. Sure. Yeah, okay. Definitely. Oh, very good. If you were a professional athlete, you would be a badass. And I'm sure. I think you would be too. Well, I mean, it would be some sort of combat sport for sure. Okay. Yeah, like you asked what sport I would play. Yeah. Yeah, so it'd be some jiu-jitsu. I mean, right now I'm 46, so I wouldn't say MMA because that's a bit old for that. Yeah. But grappling, I could still be. I'd say jiu-jitsu probably. Let's go that. Let's go with that. Nice. I love the art. It's fun. All right. Drive or navigate? Drive. Come on, man. Favorite cheat meal? Cheat meal? Yeah. Like cheat meal. I mean, I just eat. I don't really care about all that. Cheat meal. Quick. I would say pizza or burgers. Yeah, I don't know. Nice. Yeah. Most annoying habit? I like. Say you're watching a TV show or whatever, like a reality thing or a talk show or something. Yeah. I always have to like analyze why they're doing that. Like I say, there's a Dancing with the Stars, like Jared was on, right? Yeah. Like you can always see like these competitions where who they're favoring based on the words they're using and how much time they give them on the commercial and like, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, so I always tend to like overanalyze. Oh yeah, they're doing that because of this, and people are like, come on,
So
just enjoy it.
no-brainer.
Yeah. I don't. I mean,
Okay.
yes and no, but more like I just understand like the source of why they're doing that or how they're trying to influence you.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And I can't not see it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And sometimes it annoys my wife,
Okay.
especially.
Fair enough. What's the best Wi-Fi name you've seen?
Best what?
Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi name?
Yeah.
I wouldn't have a clue, man. Never really look.
Just connect.
I just like look. What's the one I'm supposed to be on? Okay, there it is.
All right.
I mean, I feel like I've seen some crazy ones, but I wouldn't remember off the top of my head.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Sorry.
Next one. That's right. One word to describe you.
One word.
Yeah.
Me. It was me, my man. Oh, okay. Me. Okay. I'll say resourceful.
Okay.
Resourceful.
Oh, that's a good answer. I like that. 3 things that you can't live without.
That I can't live without.
Yeah.
Jiu-jitsu.
Yep.
Food and water. No, I'm sorry. 3 things, huh? Jiu-jitsu. Oh man, I gotta say my family.
Yep.
You know, so I don't get in trouble later if my wife listens.
Yeah.
Just joking. 3 things. I don't know. I'm not really that type where like I have to have something.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? There's nothing I can. I mean, jiu-jitsu, like for me, is probably the biggest thing.
Okay.
Like being able to grapple, be able to move,
Yeah.
to wrestle. Like for me, that's probably the main thing.
Yeah.
I don't think there's much else. I'm sure after I leave here, I'll go, oh yeah, there's like a whole bunch of things.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah.
What's an amazing fact that you know that you can?
An amazing fact.
Yeah. Anything.
Okay. How about? Because I just spoke at the last conference, the MIMT, the Soft Tissue Congress on this, which is probably 70 to 85% of our clients, whether allied health, medical, strength conditioning, 70 to 85% of our clients are not doing their homework.
Okay.
Are not doing the things that we think that they're doing or that we're asking them to do.
Yeah.
They're basically non-compliant or not committed.
Yeah.
Even if you think that you might be doing. So we have all this information and knowledge, right? We think we know everything. We think we have all the right answers, but yet a large percentage of our people not doing the things that they know. Right?
Okay.
And a lot of people know what they need to do, but they're not doing it.
Right.
Yeah. So I guess that's, for me, it's a fact. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a crazy fact.
All right.
It's a sad one. But
If you could have 2 superpowers, what would they be?
Superpowers.
Yeah.
Killing me here, brother. I mean, people always say like speed and strength, probably. You know, those are like your common ones. But I would say, I got one.
Yeah.
The power of foresight.
Okay. Yeah.
Being able to like, have a really clear understanding of like, if I do or don't do this, this is what's going to happen.
Okay.
That's kind of a cool one. I like that.
That is a pretty one.
And then maybe, okay, how about time travel then?
Yeah.
Because I can always get strong. I know how to get strong and fast. It's enough. But if I'm resourceful and I know what's coming,
but everything.
I can be like Batman or something. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Very good. 2 books that everyone should read.
Oh my God, that's really.
I know you've got a lot of books, but is there any 2 that pop to mind, or maybe ones you give to your athletes? Is there any that?
Well, I have a handful that I give to all the athletes.
Yeah.
So it used to be Mindset with Carol Dweck.
Yes.
But that's starting to be more and more out there now. Like that was like when she first wrote the book. What was it? The Little Book of Talent is another one I used to give everyone. Daniel Coyle. So it's just like 52 or 50 little simple tips on performing. The Little Book of Talent. There's a lot of them. That one I just mentioned earlier actually came to mind when you said that, probably because I mentioned it, was Range. It was a really good book.
Yeah.
I like the idea that, there's so much, man. God, I have to look at my phone because really for me, it's like, well, what's the topic? Like, what do you need? You know what I mean? Like, what do you need right now? I think would benefit you. There was a cool book I read recently that I sent off to a few coaches that were trying to like build a business, like and really coach better. What was it called? Change Maker. Oh, John Berardi. It was Change Maker. That was a fairly new one. That was pretty cool. Yeah. It kind of covered a lot of coaching things and business things. Like I like the perspectives on that. I don't know. I mean, look, you need all of them. You need all your science, your textbooks. You know, there's that one that the Australian dude put together a few years back. David Joyce, High Performance Training in Sport. I think it was one. Yeah. And he took a handful of different authors. That was more like texty sort of thing, but I think you need all of it. You need your science books, like your text-based stuff. I think getting some books on human behavior would be very important. Brain Rules was one I used to give everyone all the time back in the day by John Medina. Yeah, I mean, I could go for days, man. Like I have lots of books. I'm always reading or listening to books. And, That's a tough one for me to answer short. Sorry.
No, that's all right.
Like it's for me, it's so
That's all right.
context based. Like
Yeah.
like it'd be too context based to like
Yeah.
give a broad answer.
All right. I'm going to finish with one. I reckon you can answer this one pretty quick.
Oh, yeah,
We ask everyone this one.
yeah.
Do pineapples belong on pizza?
Do pineapples?
Yeah.
Yeah, like pineapple and cheese would be like head to head for importance.
There you go. It's always a split. That's very split on this one.
There's no doubt. It's just
No doubt.
I don't have pizza without pineapple.
Yeah.
Like that's just how it is.
All right. Well, there we go. All right. So this, like I said, is episode 115. I said thanks for joining me. I'll give you the final word. Anything you want to finish up with?
No, just thanks. Just I appreciate the opportunity to share. I hope you guys got some stuff out of it, and
Absolutely.
just keep working and keep going, and
Awesome.
spend equal amount of time learning your craft as you do learning people. That's what I would say.
Yeah. No, great way to finish.
Bam.
All right. I said thank you, and I said stay tuned for next week.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Your Revolution podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe so you are notified when a new episode is posted. Like all episodes, I hope you are leaving with some great things that can help you in your life and journey through health and fitness. Get after it, and as always, train with purpose.